My Mississippi roots run as deep as this mighty river. I was born here, and when I died, I knew I'd be buried here. I just didn't think I'd die so soon, or that it would be so violent. I know who killed me, but it's still a mystery to everyone else. Growing up, I didn't care that we didn't have much money. A lot of folks in Mississippi don't. What mattered most was having parents who taught me how to dream.
Avis was the middle girl and quietest out of my other two girls.
I knew she was different when she was about 4 years old. Most of the kids be playing jacks and jump rope, and Avis be in the corner with a book.
I was the first person in my family to ever graduate from college. I even planned to get my master's degree. Imagine that. Me, Miss Avis Banks, with a master's degree.
She made us look good as parents.
She worked in a daycare, and she said she was going to open up 2 daycares, and one was going to be for her, and one was going to be for the family.
She loved kids a lot. Avis would talk about having her own, but wanted to wait until she found the right man.
I never liked wasting my time with boys. They seemed like a lot more trouble than they were worth.
She was more into school than she was the boys.
But love is a funny thing. It sneaks up on you when you least expect it and takes your breath away.
Avis called me and she said, I met this guy and I want you to meet him.
The first time Avis brought Keon home, he assured us that he loved Avis and he was gonna take care of Avis.
And he got his little pep talk from Frederick before he left here with Avis.
I took him outside and laid my rules down. I told him, you got a special lady, and he assured me that everything would be all right.
Things with me and Keon got serious. And when he asked me to marry him, my daddy was so proud. After 3 girls, he was finally getting a son.
Things was going really great. And then Avis found out she was pregnant. And she was really happy. She was living the American dream.
I never imagined life could be so sweet. I had everything I ever wanted. But there was someone out there who wanted to snatch it all away.
I normally call Avis every day at the same time, about 6 o'clock. And this particular day, she didn't answer her phone. 20 minutes later, phone rang, and it was Keon yelling and screaming, I need to get over here.
And he said something was wrong with Avis. And that's all he said. He hung up the phone. And I know Avis was pregnant, so I thought maybe she had had a miscarriage.
So I'm driving 80, 90 miles an hour, wife crying, and hope ain't nothing wrong with Avis.
Deep down, I think Daddy knew then that something was terribly wrong. And he was right.
When the officers first arrived on scene at Keon Pittman's house, he was laying over her body in the garage, hugging her, screaming hysterically. Our officers made a pass through the house to make sure that there was nobody else on scene.
But there was no one else there. I'd been left alone, alone to die.
When we got there and turned the corner, and I saw all the police cars, and I knew it was bad. I knew. Then the coroner came up. He said, your daughter is deceased, and she died of a horrible death.
No one should have to die like I did. Now it's up to investigators to piece together the clues my killer left behind.
As the investigators continued on with combing through the house looking for clues, there was a glass-top coffee table that was overturned, and then the master bedroom chest of drawer was open with some clothes that were pulled out of it.
Lieutenant NEAL came to us and he said that somebody had broken in Avis' house and had kicked the back door down, and he told us the strangest burglar he ever seen.
Everything that would be the target of a burglar was still in the home.
Anyone who knows me knows I didn't have an enemy in the world. But investigators suspected maybe I did.
This is obviously somebody that wanted Avis Banks dead.
I lost a dream when I realized that Avis was gone. I didn't get a chance to walk down the aisle. I didn't get a chance to see my second grandchild born. We got cheated out of all that.
I always thought my life with Keon would be pretty close to perfect. In my eyes, he could do no wrong. But maybe those investigators see something in him I never did.
The sheer violence of the injuries that Avis suffered, obviously, was a crime of passion. The investigators wanted to talk to Keon because we always concentrate on the person closest to them, and in this case, it was Keon Pittman.
Even the happiest couple sometimes keep secrets. It's just part of life. It was also part of my death. As a Southern girl, I was taught to treat people the way I wanted to be treated. So I was kind to everyone I ever met, until the day I died.
Avis felt like family to me, because we had been friends for so long. She would open her heart out to you, and she would give you the clothes off her bag. She was very loving.
It was only after I died that I learned a lifetime of love and kindness doesn't add up to much in a moment of hate.
Avis Banks suffered 4 gunshot wounds, multiple stab wounds, as well as a slash to the neck. This was a personal crime that was against her. The investigators wanted to talk to Keon Pittman, her fiancé, because we knew that we were looking for somebody that knew Avis.
I never believed that the people we love the most hurt us the most. But I guess sometimes they do.
Keon was a teacher as well as the head basketball coach. When we first interviewed Keon on the night of the murder, his statements to us indicated that he was at basketball practice and that normally during the course of practice he will receive a phone call or maybe a text message from Avis. He thought something just didn't quite feel right because he hadn't heard from her. Keon told us that he left basketball practice and drove straight home. When he got home, that's when he found her body.
I knew Keon was at practice, just like he said. Other people knew it too.
We'd interviewed the assistant basketball coach and were able to ascertain from him what time basketball practice started, what time it ended. We felt certain that at the time that Avis was murdered that he was not there.
Everybody deals with death a little differently, and sometimes guilt and grief look a lot alike.
Keon Pittman's initial conversations with us were that of a grieving fiancé. He was cooperative on the front end and the initial goings. There were subsequent attempts to try to get him back into the police department. All of those attempts were not met.
I'm thinking, Keon, you innocent. You know, you hadn't done anything. Talk. Tell him. Everybody was telling him to talk.
My daddy already lost me, and now he was about to lose the man he considered a son.
My feeling toward Keon changed dramatically. He never called us. He never contacted us. You know, he wouldn't talk to us. So, yeah, we're thinking negative things about Keon. You know, maybe he do know something about that.
A parent shouldn't have to bury a child. It's just not the natural order of life.
I didn't have that pain when my daddy died, but a pain of losing a daughter, man, it hurt. It really, really hurt.
The day of Avis' funeral, it was a lot of people, a lot of family, a lot of friends. And Keon walked in. And it's He was crying, of course.
Everybody was, on edge. They didn't know who was responsible for Avis' death. So I had Keon removed from the funeral.
Daddy was getting a little suspicious of Keon, and investigators were too.
The investigators went to Chastain Middle School where Keon was a teacher, trying to find anybody with some information that may lead us to a suspect. But we were told by the principal of the school that Carla Hughes, who was also a teacher, was one of Keon's close personal friends. Ironically, about that same time, Carla walked into the principal's office and recognized the investigators and immediately began crying and sobbing. Keon was just a close friend, and she felt so bad for her friend.
Keon always had a lot of friends, but I never thought much of it. Maybe I should have.
They had tried to ask her some questions at the school. That was unsuccessful due to her crying, emotional state. So a meeting was set up at the Ridgeland Police Department for later on that day.
You never know what somebody's hiding. But investigators were about to find out.
Carla had told us initially that they were just friends, that there was nothing romantic that was going on. Subsequent interviews, it was revealed to us that there was sexual relations going on between Keon and Carla.
People do all sorts of crazy things in the name of love. Some are the good kind of crazy. Others are just plain madness.
Lord, we like to thank you for this food we're about to receive. Lord, we thank you for waking us from our sleep last night.
I used to believe everything in life happens for a reason. But in death, everything makes a lot less sense.
It didn't make sense to me because Avis has no enemies.
It was hard because people would walk up to me and just shake their head and say, Avis? Who could do this to Avis? Avis never made a mistake. She was just perfect, and she was gonna be perfect in life.
Everyone makes mistakes. I was no different. Thing is, you can't start to make things right until you admit what you've done wrong. Any friend of Keon's was a friend of mine. I even welcomed Carla into our home. She just had that sweet Southern way about her.
Carla was not avoiding us. She was answering all of our questions, so she was a good source of information to us. But Keon Pittman immediately hired the help of a local attorney, and any subsequent interviews that we tried to get with Keon were met with resistance.
I used to envy Keon because he usually had something to say about everything. He sure picked a strange time to stop talking.
I wanted to know the truth from day one. He never came forward and said, yes, I know Carla Hughes. He never admitted it.
Avis deserved everything in a man. Just someone just being very good to her because Avis was a very good young lady.
If cheating was a crime, Keon would be guilty as charged. But charging someone with murder takes a lot more evidence.
We were never able to get that piece of evidence that put Keon at the crime scene or to even show that he knew or had knowledge of it. We had submitted several pieces of evidence to the state crime lab for testing, and we were hoping that some of that would lead to a suspect.
Investigators always hope their killers leave a little piece of themselves behind. And mine did.
The main piece of evidence that we found on that back door was the shoe impression where the violator kicked the back door twice. This was a unique shoe impression. We felt like if we were able to find the shoe that left that impression, of course it leads us to our suspect.
Investigators had collected the clues they needed to track my killer. But connecting them to the right person isn't always so easy.
We felt like the tread design that was left on that door was some type of a tennis shoe. When we talked to Keon, he did indicate that he had a pair of tennis shoes in the trunk of his car that he would wear at basketball practice. And then when we examined those shoes, that impression did not match what was on the door. But we knew that it had to be somebody aside from Keon. At that point, we weren't able to focus in on any other suspects.
Keon didn't turn out to be my prince, but he wasn't my murderer either.
It was very hard to see Avis' face flash on the TV screen every day. It was very hard knowing that her killer was out there and no one had confessed or had been caught.
I know exactly who murdered me, but it was someone else that was about to lead investigators to my killer.
The break in the case came to us when we had got a phone call from a local attorney. The attorney indicated to us that he had a client who would come to him with a family member who was identified as his niece that had borrowed a .38 caliber revolver the week that Avis was killed. His niece lived in an area of town that was run down. She had been broken into before, and she was looking for something that she could protect herself with while she was home. When the weapon was borrowed, it was fully loaded, and when it was returned 2 days after Avis's murder, that this gun was unloaded.
A loaded gun is good protection, but an empty gun, it really makes you wonder where all those bullets went.
The niece we were able to learn was Carla Hughes.
When certain women set their minds to something, it's best not to stand in their way. If you do, you could end up losing a lot more than you ever bargained for. I always believe that doing whatever it takes to get exactly what you want in life is a good thing. But when it comes to Carla Hughes, there's such a thing as going too far.
We felt like we had enough evidence that we put Carla in possession of that firearm. She was charged with accessory after the fact to capital murder.
When I was at Avis and Keon housewarming party, I met Carla. She was sitting back with her arm folded. She was just smiling.
In the South, appearances are everything. Women are taught to act sweet on the outside, even if they feel bitter on the inside.
The investigators were able to secure a search warrant for Carla's residence. During the search of her house, there was a pair of shoes that were found in the top of her closet in the master bedroom.
Investigators weren't just looking for any old shoe. They wanted one that matched the print on the back door of my house.
The shoe impressions matched what was found on the door where entry was made. We knew Carla was the one that kicked the door. As the investigators were examining the shoes, there were several areas of blood droplets that were observed on the sole area. That was human blood, and it was matched up with Avis Banks. At that point, we upgraded our charges on Carla Hughes to capital murder.
Very shocking to know that a woman could harm another woman the way she did. I didn't want to believe it, but it was reality.
I'm not sure what kind of life Carla was hoping for once I was gone. But I'm guessing it's nothing like the kind of life she's looking at now.
I think an innocent soul, it was just taken off of this earth because Carla Hughes wanted Avis' life. She wanted the man. She wanted the baby. If she couldn't have him, no one else was gonna have him.
I think people half expected Carla to explain herself in court.
We had hoped during the trial stage that Carla would take the stand, but at no time did she. She never offered any statements to the court or to the family, and has never implicated anyone else.
Surprisingly, Keon's the one who found his conscience again.
When Keon got on the stand, he said that maybe if he wasn't cheating, Avis would still be here. And then he broke down and started crying, and I kind of felt sorry for it, in a way. He had it all, and he done blew it because of a woman.
Keon is the only man I ever loved. But I know now that some men aren't worth fighting for and they certainly aren't worth dying for. I have to wonder if Carla feels the same.
The jury ultimately came back with a guilty verdict on 2 counts of capital murder.
Whatever those 12 jurors said, if it was death, life in prison without parole, it was all right with me. I just wanted them to say guilty.
I always followed a pretty straight path in life, and I always knew, in the end, it would lead me right here.
She's buried at the church cemetery. You know, my mom, dad out there, my grandparents, sister, cousin, uncles, you know, and I feel real special to have Avis out there with people she know, you know, that she grew up with.
Everyone wants to go to heaven, but almost nobody wants to die. But at least I can say I died a happy woman. I lived long enough to realize many of my dreams. And that's more than a lot of folks can say.